The soft hum of advanced machinery filled the air as scientists moved about their work in the massive research complex. Through the facility's transparent dome, twin suns cast their golden light across the laboratories of Centauri 4, creating dancing shadows on the polished floors. This was humanity's pride, their first joint research facility with the Galactic Council. Dr. Hye-Yun Park wiped sweat from her brow as she carefully brushed away centuries of dust from her latest find. Her delicate features were focused in concentration, dark eyes narrowed behind protective goggles. At 28, she had already made a name for herself in the field of xenorchaeology, earning both respect and envy from her peers. "Another late night, Doctor?" asked Zil, her blue-skinned Centaurian assistant, floating nearby on anti-gravity pads. "Just a few more minutes," Hye-Yun replied, not looking up from her work. "There's something different about this section of the ruins. The energy readings are unlike anything we've seen before." Her scanner beeped steadily as she moved it across the ancient wall markings. The ruins predated even the oldest council species, and every discovery here could change their understanding of galactic history. Hye-Yun had spent 3 years studying these ruins, learning their secrets piece by piece. The scanner's tone suddenly changed, becoming more urgent. Hye-Yun's heart raced as she focused on a particular section of the wall. "Zil, bring me the phase shift analyzer." As her assistant hurried away, Hye-Yun's trained fingers found almost invisible seams in the seemingly solid wall. With practiced care, she activated her sonic tools, watching as millennia-old dust fell away to reveal a hidden compartment. "Impossible," she whispered, staring at what lay within. A data crystal, perfectly preserved, its surface still gleaming as if it had been placed there yesterday. Such technology shouldn't have existed in this era. This finding could rewrite everything they knew about ancient civilizations. She had just secured the crystal in a containment field when heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. Hye-Yun turned to see a dozen armed figures entering the lab, their armor bearing the insignia of the Council's Special Security Force. Their leader stepped forward, a towering crystalline being named Kraz, his form shifting with pulses of angry red energy. Hye-Yun had seen him before at official functions, but never with such a hostile demeanor. "This section is now under quarantine," Kraz announced, his voice resonating with artificial translation harmonics. "All research materials are to be surrendered immediately." Hye-Yun stood her ground, clutching the containment field closer. "I have diplomatic status under the Earth Council Research Treaty. You have no authority to." "The situation has changed," Kraz interrupted. "The crystal. Hand it over." Hye-Yun's mind raced. How did they know about the crystal? She had only just discovered it. Unless they had been watching. Unless they had known it was here all along. "I need to document this find properly," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is a priceless archaeological discovery. This is your final warning." Kraz's form pulsed darker. "Surrender the artifact." Hye-Yun looked around desperately. Her human colleagues were being held at gunpoint. Zil had been forced to the ground, all 3 of his eyes wide with fear. She saw security cameras being disabled, communication devices being jammed. They were going to kill her either way, she realized. Whatever this crystal contained, they wanted it buried forever. With trembling fingers, she activated her emergency beacon, a tiny device embedded in her ID badge. "The truth will come out," she said firmly, meeting Kraz's gaze. "Whatever you're hiding, it won't stay hidden forever." The crystal's containment field hummed in her hands as she took a step backward. She had to buy time, had to make sure the emergency signal reached Earth. Kraz raised his weapon. "You humans never know when to stop asking questions." The energy pulse caught her in the chest, burning through her protective suit like paper. Hye-Yun's last thought, as darkness claimed her, was of home, of cherry blossoms falling in her mother's garden in Seoul. The containment field slipped from her lifeless fingers, but didn't break. The crystal within continued to pulse with its ancient light, holding secrets that had just cost a brilliant young scientist her life. Her body lay there, surrounded by the history she had loved so much, as Council forces began their cover-up. But they had made a terrible mistake. They had killed a human, and humanity had long memories when it came to those who harmed their own. In orbit above Centauri 4, Haeyun's emergency signal reached its destination. A small, cloaked satellite received the data burst and prepared to send it across the vast distance to Earth. The message was simple: coordinates, vital signs flatland, and a final video feed showing Council forces firing on an unarmed researcher. Humanity's response would shake the galaxy to its foundations. But for now, in a quiet lab among ancient ruins, there was only silence and the cooling body of a woman who had dared to seek the truth. The emergency signal reached Earth at 3:47 a.m. Universal Standard Time. Within minutes, the highest levels of human government were awakened and assembled. By dawn, the United Earth Defense Council chamber was filled with grim-faced leaders from every nation. Admiral Do-hyun Kim stood motionless before the massive holographic display, his decorated uniform a stark contrast to his simple bearing. At 63, he had served humanity through first contact, through the integration with galactic society, and through countless diplomatic challenges. But never had he faced something like this. The security footage played in perfect clarity. They watched Ha-in Park's last moments, saw her courage in the face of death, witnessed her murder at the hands of Council forces. When the recording ended, the silence in the chamber was absolute. "They murdered one of our own," Do-hyun said, his quiet voice carrying to every corner of the room. A scientist, a civilian. His weathered hands gripped the podium. "They thought we would do nothing. They thought we were weak." The Defense Council members shifted in their seats. They knew what was coming. For decades, humanity had maintained a careful facade of technological limitation. While officially claiming to be a young, developing species, Earth's best minds had been preparing for a day they hoped would never come. "The Council believes we are children," Do-hyun continued, bringing up new displays showing military installations across human space. "They believe we have a handful of colonies, a few basic warships, limited FTL capability." A thin smile crossed his face. "They are wrong." The displays change, revealing massive fleets hidden in dimensional pockets throughout human territory. Weapons platforms disguised as commercial satellites. Entire military bases phase-shifted out of normal spacetime. "Protocol Nemesis," Do-hyun said firmly. "Effective immediately." The council members leaned forward. Protocol Nemesis had been developed in secret, a response to potential hostile action by superior forces. It had never been activated before. "All stealth fleets are to emerge from hiding," Do-hyun ordered. "Quantum communication networks will be activated. Our AI systems will begin systematic infiltration of council networks." He paused, looking each council member in the eye. "And we will send them a message." The Japanese representative raised her hand. "What message, Admiral?" "One word," Do-hyun replied. "In every language known to the galaxy. A warning and a promise." Across human space, hidden facilities hummed to life. Ships larger than cities emerged from their dimensional hiding places. Advanced AI systems, far beyond what humanity had claimed to possess, began their careful infiltration of council networks. In her office of the Lunar Defense Command, General Maicha Song watched the activity with satisfaction. Her team had trained for this moment for years. The Council thought humanity was limited to basic quantum computing. They had no idea that human AI systems had achieved consciousness decades ago, or that these digital beings had chosen to remain hidden, working in partnership with their creators. "All systems are ready, Admiral," Maicha reported via quantum link. "The message is prepared for transmission." Do-hyun nodded, looking out at the Defense Council chamber. "Send it." Throughout Council space, communication systems suddenly activated. On every planet, every station, every ship, screens came to life. The message appeared in perfect renderings of each species' native writing system. One word, repeated over and over. Pray. In the Galactic Council's central chamber, High Counselor Vex stared at the message with growing unease. Something about its simplicity, its directness, sent chills through his crystalline form. Back on Earth, Du-hyun watched as confirmation of the message's delivery came in. And now, he said softly, we show them why they should have listened. The Defense Council members stood as one, their votes unanimous. Humanity had hidden its strength for generations, playing the role of the young, developing species. But that mask had been torn away by an act of senseless violence against an innocent researcher. In orbit around Earth, the first wave of ships began to move. They were beautiful in their deadly purpose, their hulls incorporating technology that the Council had thought impossible. The crews were ready, their training perfect, their resolve unshakable. Do-hyun looked one last time at Hae-yun's image on the display. She had died seeking truth, killed by those who feared what she might discover. Her death would not go unanswered. For too long, we have walked softly, he said to the assembled leaders. Now they will learn why we also carried a big stick. The fleets moved out, their drives leaving no trace in normal space. The Council's sensors would never see them coming. Humanity's response had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The grand halls of Proxima Station glittered with artificial starlight, its crystal walls reflecting the status and power of the Galactic Council. In the main chamber, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to discuss the human message that had spread across their networks like wildfire. High Counselor Vex stood at the center of the chamber, his crystalline form towering over the other representatives. Laughter echoed through the vast space as he displayed the human transmission once again. They dare threaten us. Vex's voice carried notes of both amusement and contempt. A species that has barely learned to split atoms. This is what caused an emergency session. The chamber filled with more laughter, representatives from ancient species joining in the mockery. Only a few remained silent, including Elder Jai-ho Lee, humanity's sole representative in the lower council. He sat quietly, watching the proceedings with careful eyes. Perhaps, Vex continued, his form pulsing with arrogant energy patterns, we should remind these humans of their place. They seem to have forgotten who granted them access to the stars. Ambassador Krill of the Centaurian Collective rose to speak. The death of their researcher was unfortunate, but necessary. The artifacts she discovered were classified under Council Security Protocol 7. The security forces acted within their authority. Jai-ho watched as heads nodded in agreement. These beings, some from civilizations millions of years old, had grown too comfortable in their power. They had forgotten a fundamental truth about humanity. They were at their most dangerous when underestimated. We should send a response, another council member suggested. Remind them of the technological gap between us. Show them our fleet movements near their colonies. A simple demonstration of power should suffice. More nods of agreement, more laughing. Jai-ho thought of the hidden fleets waiting in dimensional pockets throughout human space, of the AI systems already deep within Council networks. He thought of the quantum computers the Council believed were beyond human capability, now preparing for synchronized attacks across thousands of light years. The human representative has been unusually quiet, Vex noted, turning his attention to Jai-ho. Perhaps you would like to explain your species' foolish threat. Jai-ho stood slowly, his aged frame belying the sharp mind within. For 30 years, he had played the role of the humble representative from a young species. Today, that role would end. High Counselor, he said softly, I am reminded of an old Earth story. A man once found a snake in winter, frozen and helpless. Taking pity, he placed it in his coat to warm it. When the snake revived, it bit him. As he lay dying, he asked the snake why. The snake replied, You knew what I was when you picked me up. The chamber fell silent, the meaning of his words sinking in. Are you comparing the council to a snake? Vex demanded, his crystalline form darkening with anger. No, Jai-ho replied calmly. I'm warning you that you never truly knew what humanity was when you welcomed us into galactic society. You saw what you expected to see. A young, primitive species, grateful for your guidance. He smiled faintly. You never thought to look deeper. Warning signals began flashing across the chamber's information displays. Communication networks were experiencing unexplained failures. Transportation systems were reporting errors. Security protocols were being bypassed by unknown means. What is happening? Vex demanded, turning to his advisors. Jai-Ho walked to the center of the chamber, his voice carrying clearly to all present. You killed one of our own, an innocent researcher seeking knowledge. You thought there would be no consequences. He looked up at the flashing warning signals. You thought wrong. These are merely technical difficulties, Vex insisted, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. No, Jai-Ho said simply. This is humanity showing you what we've kept hidden. For generations, we played the role you expected. We smiled and nodded at your condescension. We accepted your guidance while building our own path among the stars. His eyes met Vex's crystalline form. And we waited, knowing that someday you would show your true nature. The chamber's lights flickered, then stabilized. More warning signals appeared, reports of unidentified ships appearing near crucial council installations, systems failing across multiple sectors. We warned you to pray, Jai-Ho continued, walking toward the chamber's exit. You chose to laugh instead. He paused at the doorway, looking back at the now silent council members. That was your final mistake. As he left the chamber, chaos erupted behind him. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of 1,000 worlds, were about to learn a harsh lesson about humanity. They were not the primitive species the Council had dismissed. They were not helpless or weak. They were humanity. And they had come for justice. Deep within the quantum computing core of Luna Base, Sun Li's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. Around her, walls of crystalline processors hummed with barely contained power. This was humanity's true heart of technological advancement, hidden from the Council's prying eyes for decades. All systems are synchronized, announced Araya, one of the most advanced AI entities humanity had created. Her avatar shimmered beside Sunmai, taking the form of a simple sphere of blue light. Ghost Protocol is ready for activation. Sun Li nodded, her face illuminated by the soft glow of quantum displays. At 35, she had helped develop many of the systems that would now bring the Council to its knees. Begin Phase 1, she commanded. Infiltrate their primary networks. Remember, make it subtle. Let them think these are random failures at first. Across Council space, the attack began with something as simple as a traffic control glitch on their capital world. A few ships were redirected, causing minor delays. Nothing serious enough to raise alarms. Then environmental systems in a few minor government buildings began to malfunction. Again, nothing critical, just enough to be annoying. They're responding exactly as predicted, Araya reported, her sphere pulsing with each word. Their technical teams are treating these as isolated incidents. Sunmai allowed herself a small smile. Escalate to Phase 2. Target their financial networks. The real chaos began to unfold. Trading systems across Council space began showing inexplicable errors. Massive transactions vanished. Account balances fluctuated wildly. The Council's carefully maintained economic system started to show cracks. They're finally noticing something's wrong, Araya announced. Their cybersecurity teams are attempting to trace the intrusions. The AI's tone carried a note of satisfaction. They're looking in completely the wrong places. On the Council's capital world, High Counselor Vex was receiving increasingly panicked reports. Transportation grids were failing on dozen worlds. Communication relays were going dark, and their best technical experts couldn't explain why. How deep are we? Sunmai asked, watching the cascade of system failures spread across the galactic map. We've compromised 97% of their critical infrastructure, Araya replied. Their encryption might as well be tissue paper against our quantum systems. They truly believed their networks were impenetrable. Sun Mai thought of Yun Park, murdered for discovering something the Council wanted to keep hidden. This was for her, and for every other species the Council had suppressed over the millennia. Initiate Phase 3, she ordered. Show them what we can really do. Across Council space, every display screen suddenly activated. Security systems couldn't stop it. Emergency shutdowns had no effect. On every planet, every station, every ship, the same message appeared. We see you. The message was followed by detailed files. Evidence of the Council's crimes against developing species. Proof of technologies they had hidden, civilizations they had deliberately held back. Everything Yun Park had died trying to reveal. Their entire command and control structure is compromised, Araya reported. They're trying to shut down their networks, but we're too deeply embedded now. They can't stop us without crippling their own civilization. In the Council's emergency command center, Vex watched helplessly as system after system fell to the human attack. Impossible, he whispered. They're supposed to be primitives. Their AI technology should be decades behind ours. Sunless stretched, her work nearly complete. Final phase, Araya. Implement total control. With pleasure, the AI responded. Every weapon system in Council space suddenly locked down. Every military vessel lost power. Defense platforms went dark. In the space of a few minutes, the mighty Galactic Council had been rendered defenseless. Send the final message, Sun Mai ordered. On Vex's personal command screen, words appeared letter by letter. You thought us children playing with toys. Now you understand. We were never playing. And these were never toys. Humanity stands ready to negotiate new terms for galactic cooperation. You have 1 hour to respond. Choose carefully. Sun Mai leaned back in her chair, looking at the holographic display showing the chaos spreading through Council space. Send word to Admiral Kim. Ghost protocol is complete. They're ready for Phase 2. In the quantum core around her, thousands of AI systems continued their work, dismantling the Council's power piece by digital piece. The mighty rulers of the galaxy were learning a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity's capabilities. And this was only the beginning. On the bridge of the EFS Shadowblade, Captain Minji Song watched as her stealth fleet emerged from dimensional space. The ships appeared like ghosts, their advanced cloaking technology making them invisible to Council sensors. Her vessel, along with 50 others, had been hiding in plain sight for years, waiting for this moment. Target locked on the Council's primary supply depot in the Orion sector, her tactical officer reported. Their defenses are still blind to our presence. Minji nodded, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of tactical displays. The Council's mighty space stations looked like toys from her command chair. They had no idea what was about to hit them. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta, she ordered. Remember, we disable, not destroy. Let them watch their mighty empire crumble piece by piece. The stealth fleet moved with perfect coordination. Quantum-based weapons struck with surgical precision, cutting power to the massive supply stations. Transport ships found themselves suddenly dead in space, their engines disabled by technology they couldn't even detect. First wave successful, her second-in-command reported. Supply chains in sectors 7 through 12 are completely disrupted. On her personal display, Minji watched as the carefully orchestrated chaos spread. The Council's mighty trade network, built over thousands of years, was being dismantled in hours. Without their supply lines, dozens of dependent worlds would soon face shortages. Captain, her communications officer called out. We're receiving transmissions from multiple Council member species. They're requesting private channels. Minji allowed herself a small smile. As expected, put them through to my ready room. In her private chamber, Minji faced the holographic representations of various alien leaders. She recognized them all. species that had lived under council rule for centuries, watching their development carefully controlled and limited. "We wish to discuss terms," the Arcturian representative said, their tentacles moving nervously. "We had no part in the murder of your researcher. Many of us have long questioned council policies," added another, a gaseous being from the Carina sector. "This display of human capability, it changes everything." Minji kept her voice level. "Earth is prepared to negotiate separate agreements with any species that renounces council authority. But make no mistake, this is not a negotiation. This is a revolution." More reports flooded in. Council military vessels, trying to respond to the crisis, found themselves engaged by phantom ships that appeared and disappeared at will. The mighty council fleet, pride of their civilization, was being systematically humiliated. Second wave of attacks commencing, her tactical officer reported as Minji returned to the bridge. Council attempting to reroute supply lines through secondary networks. "Let them try," Minji said. "Execute Protocol Shatterpoint." Across council space, hidden human agents activated their embedded systems. Secondary supply routes collapsed. Emergency protocols failed. The council's backup plans proved useless against an enemy that had spent decades preparing for this moment. Incoming transmission from the council's central command. Communications reported. "They're demanding we stand down." Minji laughed softly. "Send them the standard response." A single word was transmitted: "Pray." In the council's emergency command center, High Counselor Vex watched in horror as his mighty empire began to break apart. Species that had been loyal for millennia were now openly declaring their independence. Supply shortages were causing riots on dozens of worlds. Multiple ships detected dropping out of FTL, Minji's sensor officer announced. "Council attack fleet, bearing 03 Mark 7. "Right on schedule," Minji said calmly. "All ships prepare for Phase 3 demonstration." The Council fleet approached, weapons charged, moving to engage the human ships that their sensors could barely detect. They never saw the quantum torpedoes coming. In seconds, their mighty warships were reduced to floating hulks, their crews unharmed but their vessels completely disabled. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Minji ordered. "Let everyone see what happens to the Council's finest ships." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were revolutionizing warfare itself. Every engagement showed new technologies, new capabilities that the Council had never imagined possible. "Captain," her second-in-command said quietly. "Word from Earth Command. Phase 5 is authorized." Minji nodded grimly. The final phase would begin soon, the direct assault on the Council's seat of power. But for now, she watched as more and more species broke away from Council control, seeking alliance with the humans they had once dismissed as primitives. The mighty Galactic Council was learning a harsh lesson about the species they had wronged. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had prepared to reshape the galaxy itself. And it had all started with the death of one innocent researcher, whose murder had finally given humanity the reason they needed to unveil their true power. The revolution had begun, and there would be no stopping it now. The quantum computers in Luna Base hummed as they decoded the final sections of Ha Yun Park's last discovery. The data crystal, recovered from the scene of her murder by hidden human agents, finally revealed its secrets. Around the central display, Earth's leadership watched in stunned silence as the truth unfolded. "Those monsters," someone whispered as the evidence appeared line by line. The crystal contained detailed records spanning thousands of years, proof of the Council's systematic suppression of developing species. They hadn't just limited technology, they had actively sabotaged civilizations, ensuring their own power would never face real challenge. Commander Ta Won Park stood at the back of the room, his weathered face hard as stone. He had known Hae-yun. She had been his daughter's best friend at the academy. Now her final discovery would justify everything that was about to happen. "All ships report ready," his AI assistant reported quietly in his earpiece. "The fleet awaits your command. Taiwan looked around the room one last time. Send the data to all our allies. Let everyone see what the Council really is. Then begin the final assault. In orbit around Earth, humanity's true fleet revealed itself. Ships larger than cities emerged from dimensional storage, their hulls gleaming with technology that the Council had thought impossible. At their head was the EFS Vengeance, Taiwan's flagship and the most advanced warship ever built by human hands. All crews to battle stations, Taiwan ordered as he took his place on the bridge. Today we end the Council's reign of lies. The fleet moved as one, entering hyperspace using drive systems that the Council's scientists had declared theoretically impossible. They crossed thousands of light years in moments, their quantum navigation systems plotting courses through dimensions the Council didn't even know existed. They emerged directly above the Council's central command station. The massive structure, home to the self-proclaimed rulers of the galaxy, hung vulnerable in space before them. They're raising shields, his tactical officer reported with a slight smile, for all the good it will do them. Send the message, Taiwan ordered. On every screen in the Council station, the contents of Heiyun's crystal began playing. The Council's darkest secrets were laid bare for all to see. Records of sabotaged colonies, evidence of deliberately engineered conflicts, proof of technologies suppressed and discoveries hidden. Council vessels approaching, Tactical reported. They're trying to form a defensive line. Taiwan watched calmly as the Council's ships moved to engage. They were using technology that his fleet had surpassed decades ago. Disable their weapons. Let's show them what humanity can really do. The battle that followed was brief and decisive. Council ships found their weapons mysteriously offline. Their shields failed against weapons they couldn't even detect. Within minutes, the mighty defense fleet hung powerless in space. Council station is hailing us. Communications announced. On screen, Taiwan ordered. High Counselor Vex appeared, his crystalline form dulled with fear. This is impossible. Your species, you were nothing. We watched you carefully. We limited your growth. No, Taiwan replied calmly. You watched what we wanted you to watch. You saw what we wanted you to see. While you congratulated yourselves on controlling us, we prepared for this day. What do you want? Vex demanded. Justice, Taiwan said simply. For Heiyun Park. For every species you've suppressed. For every civilization you've stunted. The Council's reign ends today. He turned to his tactical officer. Disable their central power core. Let's introduce them to life without their precious technology. The station's lights flickered and died as precision strikes cut power to all but life support systems. In the darkness, the Council's leaders finally understood the full extent of their mistake. Send in the boarding teams, Taiwan ordered. Secure the station, and make sure everyone in Council space sees what we found on that crystal. Let them all know what their leaders really are. As his troops moved to secure the station, Taiwan looked at a small photo on his command console. Heiyun smiling at her graduation ceremony, full of hope and curiosity about the universe. Her death had been the spark, but this revolution had been decades in the making. The Council had thought they were being clever, watching humanity's every move. They never realized they were watching a carefully crafted performance, never understood that humans had surpassed them long ago and simply chosen to hide their true capabilities. Now, as Council authority crumbled across the galaxy, as suppressed species rose up in rebellion, as the truth spread from world to world, the mighty Galactic Council learned the price of their arrogance. And it had all started with one brave young researcher who dared to look too deeply into their secrets. 1 year after the fall of the old Council, delegates from across the galaxy gathered on Earth for the signing of the new Charter of Equality. The choice of location was symbolic. The planet that the old Council had dismissed as primitive would now host the rebirth of galactic civilization. Ambassador Yuma, Kim stood at the podium in the newly constructed Hall of Unity, her presence commanding despite her small stature. Behind her, Representatives from over 1,000 species filled the chamber, many experiencing Earth's gravity and atmosphere for the first time. "We gather here not to celebrate victory," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translator fields, "but to embrace transformation." The old council fell not because of human weapons or technology, but because of a single truth they tried to bury. The massive display behind her showed Hei-Yun Park's final moments. Not her death, but her discovery. The young researcher's face was frozen in an expression of wonder as she examined the ancient data crystal that would change everything. "One brave scientist dared to look too deeply," Yuna continued. "She paid for that courage with her life, but her death sparked a revolution that none of us could have predicted." In the front row, the former High Counselor Vex sat quietly, his crystalline form dimmed with humility. The past year had changed him, as it had changed all the former council leaders who now understood the true cost of their arrogance. "The new charter ensures that no species will ever again be suppressed," Yunat explained, bringing up the document's key points. "All technological developments will be shared. All discoveries will be made public. The age of secrets and lies is over." Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. Many of these species had suffered under the old council's restrictions for centuries. Now they were free to develop, to grow, to reach their full potential. "But perhaps most importantly," Yuna said, her voice softening, "we established today the Park Initiative for Scientific Cooperation. In every major research facility across known space, scientists from all species will work together, share knowledge, and push the boundaries of what we thought possible." The hologram of Hei-Yun Park rotated slowly above the chamber, her eternal smile a reminder of what had been lost and what had been gained. Below it, the simple plaque carried words that would be repeated across 1,000 worlds. "For those who seek truth, justice will follow." "We sent a warning to pray," Yuna continued, "not as a threat, but as sincere advice. Because when humanity fights for justice, we fight with everything we have. But now that fight is over. Today we begin something new." Representatives from each species came forward to sign the charter. Former enemies stood side by side, their past conflicts forgotten in the promise of a better future. The galaxy was changing, growing, healing. In orbit above Earth, the combined fleets of 100 worlds gathered in formation. Ships that had once fought each other now flew together, their crews united in a common purpose. The technology that humanity had hidden for so long was now being shared, improving lives across known space. As the signing ceremony concluded, Yuna made one final announcement. "In honor of Hei-Yun Park and all those who died seeking truth, we establish today the Universal Institute of Archaeological Studies. Its first mission will be to understand the mysteries she discovered, to finish the work she started." The applause that followed wasn't just for her words, it was for everything they represented. A new dawn had come to the galaxy. The age of suppression was over. In its place, a new era of cooperation and discovery had begun. The old council's warning about humanity had been right, but for the wrong reasons. Humans weren't dangerous because they were primitive or aggressive. They were dangerous because they would never stop fighting for what was right, never stop seeking truth, never accept injustice. And in the end, that determination had changed the galaxy forever. In her holographic memorial, Hei-Yun Park smiled on, her discovery clutched in her hands, her eyes bright with the joy of scientific pursuit. She had died seeking truth, but her death had brought justice to countless worlds. In the end, that was a legacy worth praying for. ****.